Hey, it's before after the fact where we talk to you before we talk to you. I'm just saying, there's a lot of talking that's going to happen. And that's what we do here. Patreon.com/oh hi Justin. We would love to have you aboard to hear the rest of the conversation of what you're going to hear. And also, we just talked about Misfits. And Bryan, you brought up the fact that, to use your terms, you had a signed vinyl.
Yeah.
But I wanted to hear the story. How did you get Glenn Danzig to sign your vinyl?
So I have this listening device that you can play on a record player. We'll call it what you will. And Danzig is notoriously an asshole. I don't know if you know that. He doesn't like talking. Until recently, he hated talking about the Misfits. He hated that part of his career. He wanted to move on. He wanted people to talk about his solo records and blah, blah, blah. So I went to one of his comic book signings. He writes comic books as well. He has a comic subsidiary called Verotic, if you're not familiar. And I went to one of his comic book signings, and I brought the single of Die Die My Darling with me. And instead of making an asshole out of himself in front of people who are buying his new product, he just signed it for me. So I went and got it signed. And now I brag about it on shows and get made fun of by men who are older than me.
Oh, we're going that route, are we?
It's okay.
Sounds like we are.
But it's the only signed listening device that I own, or a listening product, whatever you want to call it. It's a fucking vinyl, all right?
It's okay. It's okay.
But it's the only signed thing I own. I own a lot of Misfits records, but that's the one thing Danzig had signed. So I like it a lot. I'll never get rid of it as long as I live. So.
One of the older gentlemen who was making fun of Bryan was who I know has a ton of signed gear. Fredo Torres. Yes, records.
Yes, I have a ton of signed records. I've got stuff that I really love. I mean, I've got Pink Floyd Dark Side of the Moon. I've got Depeche Mode Violator autographed. I've got all kinds of shit. Some of it I got on my own. Some of it I've got through auctions and stuff like that. But if I have to say which one that I love, that's got a real story behind it, it's going to be the Fix, Reach the Beach. And the Fix to me is probably the most underrated 80s band for sure, and probably top 5 most underrated bands of all time. They are fucking incredible. They are great. I've loved them since I first heard them during the 80s. And last year, they were playing at a club right around the corner from where I live. It's a place called the Tin Pan. And it's great. It's a very small, intimate place. It's maybe 200 people. You sit at tables and have dinners. You know, you think of an old jazz kind of place,
Gotcha.
where you're sitting there maybe having a drink and then there's a singer right on stage, that kind of stuff. And the Fix were playing, and they were doing whatever it is, the 30th or 40th anniversary of Reach the Beach. So they played the whole album, and miraculously, every member of the band is still the band is still together with all the original members. So, and they love meeting people after the show. So I brought my copy of Reach the Beach, and they did incredible show, especially being that close. When I tell you, I was probably 3 car lengths away from the stage, and I was sitting at the bar. It was just, the energy was awesome. The whole show was awesome. And then after that, I got to actually meet the band, and they all autographed it, and we talked for a good half hour, and they were just sitting there interacting with about 20 or 30 people that had stayed after to get autographs.
Nice.
So, I like I said, I got tons of autograph stuff, but if we were talking about autograph albums, that to me is the one that stands out the most.
So John F., every time you come on the show, pretty much immediately after, you send pictures of countless albums of whatever band we were talking about.
Yeah, like I've been working on my collection for a long time, and I have a few autographed things. Like I have that first Jets to Brazil record autographed from when I saw them on that first tour. I have a couple, like nothing crazy, but my collection, I think I have like an original Sex Pistols, Nevermind the Bollocks, original Black Flag Damaged, original Germs, the GI LP, like some of that stuff I really wanted to track down, like the original copy, because you want to get as close to like, I want to get as close to like where the band held it in their hand,
Right.
Gotcha.
But probably the most impressive, I guess, or the most of my collection is the Pearl Jam stuff. Like I do a podcast with my friend Randy called Live on Four Legs, where we talk about a different Pearl Jam live show every week. And like they were my favorite band when I was 13. Like I was kind of at the right age, and they were the one that really got me into collecting records in like 93, 94. So I've been on this kind of quest to own like every single Pearl Jam Pearl Jam record, like on vinyl.
Wow.
Piece of vinyl, if you will. And
That's great.
so I started off like I had all the original LPs and like got all the live ones, like all their vault releases, all the fan club singles, all the 7-inch singles. So right now I think I have about 104 unique Pearl Jam records.
Wow.
There's only like I think 1 or 2 that I don't have. So that's probably the thing that I'm most proud of in my collection.
So John A., you started telling us a story just before we went on. What you got, man?
Oh wow! So that just reminded me of a different story.
Oh, nice.
That
Perfect.
I guess I'll tell now because you mentioned the Pearl Jam thing. Because Pearl Jam is probably maybe my favorite band that's still together. I go to a lot of Pearl Jam shows, or as many as I can. I did I think 8 shows on the 2016 tour. Hampton, Virginia being my favorite show of those.
Yeah, I think I did 6.
Yeah, those are all great. And I didn't know you actually did that show, John, but it's good to know that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so me and my friend drove from where we live in North Carolina to Philadelphia to see the Temple of the Dog show, the first show of that tour they did. So we had like 2 days to do it. So we drove from here to Philadelphia to see that show. And then afterwards we were just kind of hanging out in the street, hoping like some of them might come out to like sign something or just, to go to their cars or whatever.
Mhm.
So so we're standing there after the show with a few people, and then Chris Cornell walks out, and he just walks out the side door into the middle of the street of this Philadelphia street, and then signed for everybody that was standing there. And he signed my poster.
Wow.
And it was really cool. Like, and, like, especially considering what happened to him like a year later, but it was kind of cool to meet Chris Cornell and talk to him for a minute, get him to sign something. And then, Jeff and Matt just kind of came out, went straight to their cars and left. And then Mike McCready and Stone Gossard came out. And by this point, the cops had made us move out of the middle of the street where we were all standing. So we were all standing on the sidewalk just talking. And then Stone and Mike came out, and I'm wearing this Kiss 1975 shirt. And Mike walks over, and he grabs my jacket, and he opens my jacket up, and he like looks at my Kiss shirt, and he's like, oh, that's their best era. And we talked about Kiss for a minute, and then he signed my poster, and then Stone came behind him and signed it, and then they both left. But that was a really, really, really memorable time that I'll never forget that as long as I live.
So for me, I'm going to make this quick. I've never been an autograph guy. One time I saw Twisted at the Abyss. I bumped into Violent J in the crowd, said, "What up, homie?" and walked away. There's my story, and I'm sticking to it. If you like this conversation, I guarantee you'll like more of it after the fact is on my Patreon, patreon.com/ohhijustin. You can get it there. You want to hear these same people talking about Misfits? It's available on all podcast platforms on Thursdays. You can listen to Deprogrammed and get into the show and jump onto it. And again, patreon.com/ohhijustin. We appreciate you, and there's really no end to this.